Hey Lanyon Youth, before we get into the podcast for today, can I just encourage you, this Friday, Easter Good Friday, I'm going to give a message on the YouTube channel for youth about the cross, the central thing in our faith. And what I would love you guys to do listening in is to share it with people. This is one of the easiest chances you'll ever have to invite someone to youth. Share them the link in advance, invite them to come hear the good news of Easter in this world of bad news at the moment. Now, into the podcast. Good morning, Lanyon Youth. It's Wednesday, the 8th of April, and we're walking shoulder to shoulder with Jesus as he heads to the cross. In a way, this day in Holy Week is a bit uneventful in comparison to what's come before and what will follow, but there are still some things for us to meditate on. Let me just read you two short passages. The first is from Luke 21, 37 to 38. This is what Jesus was doing on the Wednesday. And every day he was teaching in the temple, but at night he went out and lodged on the mount called Olivet. And early in the morning, all the people came to him in the temple to hear him. So he's got a ministry of teaching in the temple and then withdrawing at night to the mountain. And then we also read in Matthew 26, 3 to 5, a bit of context for what's happening. Matthew 26, 3 to 5 says, "Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and plotted together in order to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, 'Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people.'" What we get here for our kind of picture of Wednesday is basically the Jewish leaders further confirming their decision to arrest Jesus and to kill him. Just a bit of context, what is this group of chief priests and the elders of the people that gather in the high priest's palace? Well, it's something you've probably heard of before called the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was a council of 71 Jewish leaders in the region that gathered together to make important decisions. It went all the way back to Moses' idea of having 70 leaders. They based it on that and had 71, the extra one being the high priest, Caiaphas in this case, who kind of made the final decisions. And the clash between the Jewish leaders, the Sanhedrin and Jesus, it hasn't just come out of nowhere in these verses. If you go look, say, in Mark chapter 3, at the beginning of Mark's gospel, already Jesus is clashing with them. See, these elders and chief priests and Jewish leaders, they kind of had this thing called the oral Torah, or the oral law, which they believed went back to Moses, of all these extra regulations and rules on top of what we have in the Old Testament about how to follow their God, Yahweh. And these is what Jesus challenges so much in his teachings. And so this is why they constantly clash with one another, Jesus and the Jewish leaders. All the way back in Mark 3, they're plotting to kill him. So that's just a bit of background to give you an insight into what's happening on this Wednesday night in those passages we just read. The Jewish leaders, for years clashing with Jesus, come to a final decision. In stealth, they're going to arrest and kill Jesus, but not in public for fear of the crowds. We'll see more of what this means later in the week, but I just wanted to think a bit about what Jesus would have been thinking and doing as he retreated to the Mount Olivet each night. I reckon he didn't have a podcast for his daily devotion, but I reckon he meditated those nights on the Word. Particularly, I wonder, on the Psalms. You know those Psalms we sometimes hear about enemies surrounding them? I wonder if he reflected on Psalm 71, verse 10. "For my enemies speak against me. Those who wait to kill me conspire together. They say, God has forsaken him. Pursue him and seize him, for no one will rescue him. I wonder if he meditated on that. I wonder if he meditated on Psalm 22, which he quotes on the cross, which says, dogs surround me, a pack of villains encircles me. They pierce my hands and my feet. I wonder in the same way we ready ourselves for Easter with this podcast, if Jesus readied himself for what was to come. Just to conclude, I just want us to remember, this isn't just a story with good guys and bad guys. It's easier in a way if we think about it that way, if we keep these bad guys at arm's length, but these are people. This is history. These are real events. Real people plotting to kill an innocent man. I hope that just hits you and washes over you a bit. When we realize this, when I realize this, I realize the same thing in the Sanhedrin and the Jewish leaders is in me. It's envy, fear, pride, greed, selfishness, all these dark motives in our hearts mixed with their power. The same things are in me. In the days to come, Jesus will submit himself to this evil or this sin as the very way to overcome this evil. The very way to conquer evil and sin in the world. But he'll submit himself to it to deal with the same stuff that's in me, that's in you. So stay tuned this week as we see how Jesus, submitting himself to the evil of the cross, was dealing with the evil in us.